Hello, everybody. Second day you'll find me drinking water here. So, anyway, excited to be with you as always, and I mean it. So, today's topic, guys, I'm going to be talking about. Yeah, there's somebody who already said, well, Mr. O, this is an old topic. No, it's not old. Yes, about the Yuan with Iraq, that was in May. This one about the Iraqi decision to stop the circulation of the dollar. But this live stream is not about just that. It's understanding as to what led to all this and what are the implications and ramifications moving forward, and how that is a reflection of exactly what's taking place as we speak in the Middle East and, of course, on the global stage. That is the reason why I wanted to do it. So, anyway, this is what I'm going to be covering in this live stream here, with a little bit of geography, with a little bit of history, because it's very important for us to understand that. So, before I do this, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to all of you. And I want to give a shout out to a new channel member by the name of Catherine Westover. Thank you so much, Catherine, for becoming a channel's member. And I appreciate your support. And to all of you, remember, we are now about 88 members. So I'd like to reach it to 100 soon, so I can do that exclusive Q&A for you. I am also thinking about, some of you have been sending me comments about where can we help the channel and support it and all that stuff. I'm going to create a Patreon account. So if you guys would like to support the channel that way, you can do that at your own discretion and whatever you want to support the channel with. So, but I'll work on that and I will let you know. So, but thank you all for your support. It means a lot. And please, if this is your first time here, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to get into the topic right away to cover it. So this way, because there's a lot to cover into this. And of course, I'm going to take a question or two. So make sure you prepare your question for later on. So here's the questions we're going to start with. So why did Iraq decided to stop using the dollar, or the circulation rather? I'm sorry, the circulation and the withdrawals of the US dollar. Now, was it pressured by the United States? And if so, is this aimed at Iran? And the third question is, what's really at the heart of all this? And this is exactly why I wanted to do this particular discussion today. So I do want you to keep in mind, literally, I want you to keep in mind two key aspects to this brief analysis that I'm going to do. One of them has to do with, hi, Steve. Steve calls me Dave. Hey, Dave. Hi, Steve. You know, you're funny when somebody calls me Dave. So, anyway, the two main is the BRICS, and the second one, the second one has to do with many angles to it, including Malaysia, because they just made a decision regarding the getting rid of the dollar. But if you take into consideration the trade between Malaysia and Iraq, Malaysia imports a lot of oil from Iraq. So, but also the decisions of the Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates that they will not be using the dollar for their sale of energy. So, and this is what I'm saying. I'm saying, see the big picture. This is the reason why prompted me to decide to do this. And I think the next live stream I'm going to do it, I think, on the Maldives. Then I am going to do one brief history about the Arab-Israeli conflict, this from a historical perspective. I might go back all the way back to the Roman Empire, or the Romans, that is. That's what I'm going to intend to do. So, okay. So let's get into this. We just, first of all, just address sort of a brief intro about it. So, well, of course, you're going to have to look at Iraq decisions to stop the circulation of the dollar, because it was narrated under the so-called abuse of the hard currency. There might be some logical argument to this. I was aware of one case, and the case was way back in 2007 or 2008 when I was in Iraq. I spent a lot of time in Iraq at that time when I was still working in Washington, so I used to go back and forth. I will go about 3 months, 4 months out of a year to Iraq. So one event that took place back then, and we found out about it, is that there was some money leaving the central bank in Iraq and heading out to Iran. Well, why is this important? It's because the sanctions, of course, on Iran, but also Iran had access to hard currency. But this one here, I'm seeing it differently, even though the narrative is saying, oh, because the US sort of had to talk with Iran to sort of stop the abuse of the hard currency. It is aimed at Iran. That's no-brainer, but also because we saw that one thing we didn't calculate on is that when we invaded Iraq, we didn't realize how much influence Iran is going to have in Iraq. Because you all remember, during the Iran-Iraq war, and I wrote extensively in most of my books, the last three, yeah. I don't think so. I mentioned it in the Russia book, but I did mention this one. Anyway, one thing was that we were supporting both sides. We were supporting Iraq and we were supporting Iran by providing weapons. It's the same thing we are doing. As a matter of fact, it was, I got a tweet, I wish I can find it, by a former CIA analyst, Larry Johnson, who disclosed that the US is providing weapons to both Israel and Hamas. Yeah, so interesting how. So I won't be surprised. This is why you have to see really the big picture. And I did the video for you about Iraq making this decision, but that's not what I'm going to be talking about here. What I'm going to be talking about is really what I see, the rationale for how the central bank in Iraq had to embark on this, but the objective is very different from what the narrative is. And of course, you take into consideration what's taking place right now in the Middle East. Anytime, just listen to this carefully, guys. Anytime there is a tension or tensions, there are tensions in the Middle East, when it raised to a military conflict, it tends to impact the global economy. What am I referring to here? There are two things now. The stock market in Israel is tanked. In Tel Aviv is tanked. The global economy is on a shaky ground right now. Two things, because the gold went up, oil went up. Those are the main things. And now you're going to have the impact. Of course, Israel is asking 1 million people to leave Gaza, which I don't see the rationale for something like this. You can just see if Israel escalates its attacks, it's going to go outside the box, as I say. What do I mean by this? You're going to see the involvement of some other elements in the Middle East. Already, the Western media is not disclosing detail about the current demonstrations in Jordan. As a matter of fact, they are even calling now to challenge the monarchy. And King of Jordan, his name is King Abdullah. He is going to Europe. He's going to Europe to ask its leaders, well, you're going to have, it's nonsense. It's just enough talk. It's in action that people, you can talk forever. I think he's concerned about his monarchy. Give a hoot about Palestinians or whatever. It's just politics. The interesting dynamics to this, while I'm at it, is that the Saudis this morning announced that they're going to freeze the plan for normalizing relations with Israel. Well, that's a big blow to the United States and big blow to Israel itself, because remember, there are about 4 countries. Yeah, if I recall, 4 countries that have normalized relations with Israel. Now they are on the spot. You have United Arab Emirates, you have Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. 4 countries. They are on the spot right now, because that means when you normalize something like this, that you are almost, let alone you are an Arab country or a Muslim country, that just doesn't, the optics of it are not good. And this is to takes us back to our conversation about the Iraqi decision to stop the circulation of the US dollar. And as I said, there are two elements to this. One of them is Malaysia, and the other one is the BRICS. I will get into this after I talk to you about the geography and the history, because you need to understand the history of Iraq. Iraq is a very old civilization. Most people in the West have no idea how old is Iraq is, because there's a lot of dynasties went through into that. So let's start with geography first, and I'm going to show you a map here. If I can get to it, it's right here. This is Iraq, modern day Iraq. So now there are those who say, well, Iraq is in the Middle East. Well, of course it is in the Middle East, but there are also, in some other political maps, you will see Iran listed as Western Asian country. So I always refer to it as a Middle Eastern. But again, it's Western. It's like, when you think about Turkey, for example. Yeah, Turkey in the Middle East, but also you think about it as Western Asian countries for that. So Iraq is Western Asian countries that borders 6 countries. You have Iran, Kuwait, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. And it has a very, very diverse geography. And I've been there, so I saw the difference when you go, for example, to Baghdad versus when you go to the western side of Iraq. Well, the western side is nothing but a desert, So this is why the geography of Iraq, it consists of about 5 main regions. You have the desert, you have upper Mesopotamia, you have the northern highlands, you have the lower Mesopotamia, then you have the alluvial plains. So the desert area covers the western part of the country of Iraq, while the Tigris and Euphrates River flow through the central and southern regions, this is why it's a very fertile land, and of course, in addition to being a historical site. I have one right here that I need to show you. There's right there. So you see the Euphrates and the Tigris. Those are the main aspects of the geography of Iraq, and I'm not going to go too much into this. When you look at the map itself, let me post it again for you to see, because for you to understand where everything is. You look at where Baghdad is, Samarra, Kirkuk, Mosul, Fallujah, Karbala, and Najaf, all those, and Nasiriyah, all those, Al-Basra, all those are very important cities, and each one of them has its own history, given the old history of Iraq itself, which Soleimani, of course, I didn't forget to mention that. And this is why it's important to understand the part of geography, because it put things in perspective for you. So when we decided to invade, I'm sure Washington understood to a degree, but whomever was advising the presidents kind of like, sir, you kind of need to understand the ramification of this. And this is something we failed to understand. So let me get into the history of it. And I intend to spend some time here because it's very important for you guys to see and understand. And I'm going to go all the way to the beginning with images. I had to really spend the last 48 hours digging into the archives. And by the way, I appreciate you guys. There are some of you putting comments how much they appreciate the amount of time of the research that I conduct for me to share this with you. So I appreciate that. I appreciate it. So I just want you to know. So I'm going to be leaving some pictures, but changing between or rotating between pictures to put things in perspective for you. So this is an old picture of the beginning of Iraq. This is we going back to throughout history. So what I'm going to start with the Sumerians. So let me put a picture for you. You guys can see what I'm referring to here. Sumerians. the very first people to settle in the Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq. That's how he was known back then. And the time they settled in was about 4,800 BC. And that's when he marked the first emergence of the human civilization. You know. But what's interesting about Sumerians, I don't know if you had classes in history. I remember I had it in my high school back then. Sumerians, they were very, very gifted and imaginative. And those the one who developed, by the way, the system of writing. They were the first to develop that. So the Sumerian language linguistically separates from any others. And that's where it was always preserved in some sort of a tablet and so forth. You can find them now in the clay tablets, like what you see in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. They still have them on the tablet and so forth. Also, Sumerians were known for, as I said, creativity. They invented the wheel, a mathematical system based on the number 60. That is what very interesting about him. And it's on the basis of time in modern world, and also it was the basics for the system of banking. That's what's important about it. And again, the Sumerian themselves developed other aspects of agriculture and other areas of development. I found a map, guys, that I need to share with you that goes way back. But this map here, this one is tied to the next. Who was after them? The Akkadians. Okay, the Akkadians were after in that part of history. And it was none other than it was under the rule of the Sargon of Akkad. He's the one who conquered the Sumerian city-states back then. So Akkadians were in 2340 BC. So the Akkadians were were a Semitic speaking group who united the Semites and the Sumerian speakers under one rule. But unfortunately for the Akkadians, this empire was short-lived. And it was in 2125 BC when it fell. And this is where led to the next, because they all fall under the Babylonian that comes next. Here is, by the way, I don't know if I have an image for you about. Yes, I do. This is an image of. The Sargon of Akkad. He's the one who conquered most of the Sumerian city-states. So I did find it in the archives that I was researching, and I wanted to share it with you. So the next one comes the Babylonian Empire. Let me get you. Here's an image of it. But I remember this is all. It's just this is the ruins of the city of Babylon, which are, by the way, the city of Babylon is what is in modern day city near Hilla. Hilla is I was there in Iraq, in that city, Hilla, the city of Hilla. It's known in Iraq. So the Babylonian Empire ushered in a new era in the Mesopotamia after the downfall of the Akkadians, and it was ruled under none other than Hammurabi. And I remember the name because when I was in high school, we had to learn about it. So the reign of Hammurabi, which took between 1792 to 1750 BC, he was the sixth king of the Babylon, and is regarded one of the highlights of ancient Mesopotamian civilization. Hammurabi, by the way, was the first to develop the code of law. I recall this in high school, literally. And moving justice from the whips of the powerful to the codified system of regulations applicable to all society. I wish that we have laws that apply to everybody. Meaning in my country, I can't speak of your country because Who am I to say, well, you should have this or that? No, I can't do that. But in my country, here in the United States, we don't have a fair justice system. I don't shy away from saying it. I've been writing about it. I've been speaking about it. We have unfair justice system. Even your color of skin will determine the outcome sometimes, not all the time. So, let alone the upper class versus the middle class versus the lower class. The system is a mess. So, anyway, Hammurabi created a good system that was for everybody. So, and that's what, if you ever read in history, you will always hear or reference about the Babylonian sense of justice. That is the reference to it, because Hammurabi created that fairness in the justice system. It was very, very interesting. After that came the Assyrian. Let me get you a picture here. Here's the Assyrian, and those are just imagery to reflect back then. This is the city or the capital, the original capital, the ancient city of Assur. That's where the name Assyrian came from. Don't confuse this with Syria. Those are two separate things. So the Assur was centered in the northern Mesopotamia today, which is Iraq today. So the Assyrian Empire, named for its original capital, the ancient city of Assur, was centered in northern Mesopotamia. The Assyrians were known for their mastery in battle and their penchant for city building, such as Nineveh, the city of Nineveh and Kalach. Those are because back in the 9th century BC, these two cities grew to Mesopotamia and substantial territories in the greater region. So this is what's important about this part of history. Next one comes, I think I have another image of Assyrian. Yeah, this is another image of the Assyrian images back then. So after that one came the Babylonian independence, of course, later on, which that will lead us to the next one. It's the conquest. Yeah, this is where Babylonian independence, of course, Babylonian conquered. And this one, it was when the city was conquered here. And of course, it goes back to Cyrus the Great, not Cyrus, the member of the channel here, because his screen name is also Cyrus the Great. So, so the Babylonians are defeated by Cyrus the Great in the Achaemenid Empire. So, and Mesopotamia will later become subject to subsequent conquest by Alexander the Great in 331 BC. So the Romans under Trajan, the Parthian Empire in the 3rd century BC, and the Sassanid dynasty in the 3rd through the 7th century. So this is the time when they were conquered. After that came the Arab influence. You can always tell by the architecture. So the Arab, the region of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, came under Arab influence in 636. Why is this? Because that was the time of the beginning of Islam. So Arab were first to call the country Iraq. It was the Arab that called it. So that's where the name is from. And Iraq is a name that is derived or meaning the fertile. This is why near the Tigris and Euphrates, the land is fertile. That's why they were calling it Iraq. So under what's called the Rashidun. Rashidun, it was a caliphate that existed. I remember all this also because in high school we had to go through the history of the Middle East this way. And of course, in college, I had to touch on this stuff. And for me, it was a memory I remembered. So and the Rashidun Khalif, it was none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib. Those who speak Arabic fluently will understand what I'm referring to here. Moved his capital from Medina, which means Medina in modern day Saudi Arabia, to the city of Kufa, because it was when he became the fourth Caliph. Well, Kufa is a big city in Iraq. It holds a lot of meaning to the history and civilization of Iraq. So, of course, I have some other images for the developments under the Arab ruling at that time. So then you fast forward to the Ottoman Empire. Of course, you can't forget the Ottoman expanded way far beyond. So. And by the way, during the Abbasid Caliph Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, that's when the emergence of the city of Baghdad became. I'm sorry, it's this picture here. It became one now. No, not this one. Right there. This where you start to see the architecture, the developments. And of course, when the Ottoman Empire took over, because you remember, the Ottoman expanded all the way to Spain, to one area called Sevilla and Andalusia. This is where my ancestors are from, way back in time. And before the conquest, I'm sure you all know about the wars of the conquest. My ancestor had to flee, and they fled to North Africa in the mountains in North Morocco. So this is the next one will be, and again, I don't think so. I have this image here. No, I don't. So let's just move on to the next one. The Ottoman rule. And this is the picture for the Ottoman. This is the Ottomans when they ruled during the 14th and 15th century. So, at that time in history, it was known as the Black Sheep and the White Sheep. Turkmen ruled Iraq. And in the 16th century, most of the territory of present-day Iraq came under the control of the Ottoman Empire, with the exceptions of the 16-year insurrection by the Safavid starting in 1622. I wrote about this in the Iran book because I had to mention the history of Iran vis-a-vis the one in Iraq also. And Safavids, I talked about it around the 1622 at that time. So Ottoman rule lasted until the end of the World War I. So through which Iraq was divided into 3 provinces. Yeah, 3 provinces. This is why it was important for me to share this map with you right here, to understand that Iraq, in its division back there after World War I and the fall of the Ottoman, it was divided into Mosul, you see there on the map on the north, Baghdad on the center, and the Basra. Basra in the south. Still till today, believe it or not, Iraq still ethnically, yes, it's a Muslim country, but it's still ethnically. You have Shiites and Sunnis, you have Christians, of course, but the way you look at it is Iraq into 3. You got the Kurds in the north, Sunnis in the center, and the Shiites in the south. That's how it's always. And for us, of course, we have a hard time understanding this dynamics in the history of the Middle East. That's why we never understood it. We never had a clue as to how to approach a foreign policy dealing with the Middle East. It's the same mistake we make in Asia. We don't understand that the history. You take China 5,000 years. I mean, it's not something you overlook. I said, well, no, it will be fine. No, it won't be fine, because if you don't understand what took place throughout those decades and decades, or centuries for that matter, you won't understand why China is behaving the way it behaves today. This is why it didn't make sense to me. Like I said yesterday when we were talking about Chuck Schumer, being criticizing China for not condemning Hamas. And all. China's not going to do it. It's part of their culture, history. They don't get involved when it doesn't involve them. Simple as that. We all remember what Japanese did to the Chinese, and because because the history of Japan known for that expansionism, imperialism, or whatever term you want to use, of course the Chinese won't forget that. And this is something some of our politicians do not grasp. Like I always say, you got people in Washington reading a book or two and start calling themselves experts. And that's far from the truth. So the Ottoman, let me see what I am here. And after the Ottoman Empire, as I said, it was the developments of the architectures and so forth. Then after that came King Faisal. Now you need to understand, because Iraq was a kingdom. In 1920, it was the Treaty of Sèvres, which established Iraq as a mandate of the League of the Nations and the British administration. Yeah, the Brits ruled the Middle East. Yeah, because they divided it without understanding the ethnicities, without understanding the religious lines, without understanding all the dynamics that you've seen in the Middle East, including what we're seeing right now between Israel and Palestine. Because when they pushed for the creation of Israel, they didn't understand. You're not going to tell an entire people to leave the land. That just doesn't make any sense. So King Faisal, and he was under the, as I said, British administration. And in 1921, Faisal was proclaimed as king of Iraq. And of course, the British mandate terminated in 1932, and Iraq was admitted to the League of Nations. In 1945, Iraq joined the United Nations and became a founding member of the Arab League. So the Hashemite monarchy ruled Iraq until 1958, when it was overthrown by a coup d'etat by a member of the Iraqi army, including the late Saddam Hussein. That's how it's all began for modern day Iraq. And for that, I had a picture here for you. Those are the Ba'ath elements, Ba'athist party, that is, at that time. So the Hashemite took over, but it didn't last. It was in 1958 when the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party, it was under Saddam at that time, and Saddam took presidency in 1979. It's been in power since we removed him from power in 2003, and we all know what came after that. Or of course, they are talking about the democracy of Iraq in March 2003, which is far from the truth. There is chaos in Iraq. I was in Iraq. I walked around. I used to go out. I speak the language, so I could communicate with the locals. And what they told me was, and I did ask them, of course, they're nice people in Iraq. They won't harm you if you don't harm them. Simple as that, like any other parts of the world. So I wasn't sort of concerned, because yes, I'm an American. They kind of, okay, are you judging me or are you judging the country? Why don't you deal with me as a human being instead of, and that's one mistake we make. Some of us know. We tend to, when we go to a foreign country, we think we are this highty mighty. Why? Why not have some humility and just be simple and treat people for who they are as human beings, regardless of what their nationalities are, religious or religion is, or political affiliation or ideology or what have you? Who are you to judge? It's kind of. So I used to ask them, and I said, how do you see things now? He said, it's worse for us now than it was before. I said, why is that? They said to me, well, back then, we used to go out at night and walk safely, and all. We can't do that now, meaning after the invasion, because what happened after that, the sectarian tensions emerged. Now you start having that confrontation between Sunnis and Shiites, which was fermented by outside elements. That's the you start to have electricity was all the time over there. They didn't have enough electricity. because we kind of ruined the country per se. I mean, I don't shy away from saying it. Yeah, I was there. I saw. I didn't agree with certain things. I voiced my concern, but that's all I could do. You know, at some point in your life, you reach a point where you say, I'm done with this. You know, it's kind of in clear conscience, I'm done. So now yes, I am known to U.S. government. They know who I am, of course. Will I go back and work for U.S. government? No, I don't think so. You know, there are those who ask me, well, what would happen if they want you to work as an ambassador? I said, no, thank you. I'm not interested. It's because simple reason. They are not going to let me do what is right. If I am to become an ambassador and dealing with other countries, I gotta first of all sort of fix the problems that exist before we move an inch. Because if I am to start, I gotta start on a clean slate. Washington's not gonna like that. Washington will want to have an ambassador that push for more tensions, and I'm not willing to do that. And in clear conscience, I will not. So, plus, I like what I'm doing here. This is why, guys, I told you, I gave up a full-time teaching positions to do this. Why? Because I believe in it. I'm just passing through this life here. You know, what am I going to take with me? Nothing. You know, maybe be remembered, oh, it used to be that guy, that Dr. O, used to share knowledge with us, used to do this. That's all it is. Is it for fame and all that? No. You know, and I don't like that stuff. I like to remain behind the scenes. So this is what I wanted to share with you about the history of Iraq, because I need you to understand. So all the hypes about the democracy and all that, no, Iran is worse today than it was back then. Let's just say it straightforward. So, and I don't shy away from saying that. Pardon me. So let's talk about my analysis about the two key points: BRICS and Malaysia. But even with Malaysia, you're going to have to also go before that to China's Yuan. Why? And by the way, I will have all the links for you for articles and so forth. And speaking of articles, I don't know if any of you saw the post that I did yesterday. I posted yesterday for the community. I came across, I don't know, they sent it to me as anniversary or whatever you call that. It was an article that I posted back then in 2020. Yeah, in 2020, I wrote an article for the South China Morning Post. And believe it or not, they did post it. And I argued back then that the 21st century, it's going to belong to China, not the United States. Of course, I got criticized here in the US. Let's share the link with you here, guys, so you can see it. No, not share it, but post it for you. Banner. Okay, create banner. And here is a link to my article in South China Morning Post. So let me post it for you here, guys. Here's the link, and I'll post it for you. Don't worry about it. I'll post it for you. So my arguments back then was about the idea of if we are to tie it to what Iraq did regarding the Yuan. Well, you all know, yes, it was back in May when the decision, I did a video for you there, guys, was that Iraq decided to drop the US dollar from the bilateral, remember, that's the keyword, bilateral trading with China, which means Iraq didn't want to go through the dollar to pay for its goods or whatever, or receive payments from China or other. What did they decide to do? Iraq and China decided to trade in the Yuan. So, and that also paved the way for understanding what lies ahead after that. Well, of course, what lies ahead after that has to do with the BRICS. Why BRICS? It's because, as you know, BRICS has announced the admission of 6 countries, But now I'm not going to mention all the six. I think Argentina, Eritrea, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates. I would be interested in three, the three Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates. Why is this important? It's because they are oil producers. When you are an oil producer, especially for Iran and OPEC members, the transactions will be conducted in the dollar. Not anymore, because even Saudi Arabia itself, okay, Saudi Arabia has announced now that it's going to stop using the dollar for oil transactions. Actually, United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. So when Iraq, that they can see what's going on the global stage. When Iraq saw what took place with BRICS announcements and thought about, well, wait a minute, you have Saudi Arabia, you have Iran, United Arab Emirates, OPEC members, that's going to be part of BRICS. Who do you have in BRICS? You have China, you have Russia, okay? You have India, of course. India and China, large consumers. Russia, major producer. But if you add Saudi Arabia and Iran, United Arab Emirates to a degree, but Iran and Saudi Arabia, other major oil producers, which are, by the way, also part of the OPEC Plus, all this paved the way for Iraqi politicians or whomever making their decisions to say to themselves, well, wait a minute. We're not going to wait till the train leaves the station and start running after. We better get on it right now. But how do you get on it? And under what pretext? And I am not denying that to crack down on the US dollar, it's happening. Because if Iraq didn't do it, we will sanction them. This is no different than what's taking place right now as we speak between Germany and China. They are talking about establishing a headquarters for China in Germany. And the US is livid about it because Germany is seeing where things are headed. They don't want to be, let alone they don't even trust the US anymore. I believe Iraq is seeing the same thing because Iraq is a major oil producer. Iraq has also granted some oil drilling to Chinese companies, but not the US ExxonMobil. I was there in Iraq at the time when that contract was granted to Chinese, but not to the American company. We were like, what the heck just happened? Yeah, because that's what happened. The Iraqi government back then said to the US, no, we're going to give the contract to China. Why? I don't know. I wasn't involved in those talks. Wasn't, all I was aware of is that officially ExxonMobil was kicked out and China was welcome. That was the deal. So my thinking is, with Iraq seeing these changes taking place, they're saying to themselves, no, we're not going to wait. We're going to have to get on this now. And you start to pave the way because this is going to take time. This is why the ban on the circulation of the dollar is going to take effect starting January 2024. You still have a few months between now and then. So there are also those who are saying, well, because the dinar, which is the currency of the Iraq, is going down so fast. Yes, it might be to a degree for that, but also Iraq doesn't want to be depending too much on the US dollar. Same thing the Saudis did regarding the oil transactions. Same thing, of course, Iran doesn't, because Iran is sanctioned anyway, but they don't care. They moving forward. Then the other country like Malaysia. Well, I intend to probably think about doing a video for you guys or a live stream, whatever, we'll decide later. So, well, here's the thing. Malaysia just made it through Anwar Ibrahim, made an aggressive, I'll use the term aggressive in quote here, because that's not my word, push to trade with China and Yuan, but to slash the reliance on the dollar. That's to me a big message, loud and clear, as to what's going on. Now, don't get me wrong about Anwar Ibrahim. We all know his history back then. So, but that's beside the point. It's for us to understand this is why I always say, guys, make sure to see the big picture. This is why. Is Malaysia all of a sudden decided on this based on the results of what just took place in the Maldives? What do you guys think? Because all this, don't tell me, is happening in a vacuum. There is no way. Could also Malaysia did this because this saw what just happened with India. India not getting the EV buses, the electric vehicle buses, which, by the way, thank you to Patty N8552. Was one of our members of the community here. Sent me a comment. He said, David, it is Nicaragua that placed the order of 500 electric buses from China after rejecting India. So thank you for, because I drew a blank on the name of the country yesterday. I couldn't remember. So thank you very much, Patty Ann. I truly appreciate it. So Nicaragua got that. But that's beside the point. Could it be that Malaysia now seeing that, as an example, India kind of was ignored. China said to India, sorry, we are not going to give you the 500 electric buses, but we're going to give it to Nicaragua. So Malaysia will have to think ahead of time also. Indonesia is already thinking ahead of time. But again, it's what's taking place in that part of the world, the Indo-Pacific or Asia-Pacific, whatever term you want to use for that. So, but to me, the key you need to focus on is on the Maldives elections, because that president, Mohamed Mouzu, is going to be officially I drew a blank on the word. Officially become a president in November 17th, next month. So this is where I see the key for us to understand these dynamics. And again, these are not happening in a vacuum. Iraq is thinking in terms, we better get on it now. Now, the other elements you have to also consider is what's taking place right now in the Middle East. The Arab-Israeli conflict, like always, anytime there's eruption, and this time I am seeing signs that things are going to go bad. I sad to say, but it's the reality. I'm seeing some signs. What Israel doesn't realize is that they think because of the military superiority, it's going to dominate. It will not. Israel is not highly trained in guerrilla warfare. Remember, the southern Lebanon is not even involved yet. There are other groups involved and not even getting involved in the fight yet. For now, all you have is the group inside Palestine. Now, if other groups came in, and they're going to come in with some very, very heavy weaponry and some advanced system. As a matter of fact, they just shut down a helicopter, Israeli helicopter, by a missile from the group. Where the group got the missile, I'll let you reach your own conclusion. I have my own theory for that. But my point in this is that the outcome of what lies ahead won't be pretty for Israel. So they better think twice before engaging, let alone attacking Iran, which will not make any sense. That's suicide for Israel. So, and for us, the U.S., of course, I don't know why even the head of the Palestinian leader, Mahmoud Abbas, met with the Secretary of State. Why? If it were me, I won't meet with the Secretary of State. Forget about it. Yeah, that's like the same argument I made, and I still stand by my argument. I don't know why President Xi granted the audience for Chuck Schumer. It's beyond me. Yes, I understand the culture. I understand the protocol. I understand all that. I am looking at it strategically. The head of an emerging power giving an audience to a member of U.S. Congress who, by the way, was pushing for the sanctions of China and so forth. To me, it's kind of, no, it doesn't send a clear message. In international affairs, you have to send clear messages. You have to make it clear as to where you stand, like what China did regarding the neutrality vis-a-vis now the issues of the Middle East. This is why, again, in my opinion, why they succeeded in brokering a deal between Saudi Arabia and Oman. That's just how I see it. That is what I see. So, oh, let me see. Thank you to KL. Thank you very much, KL, for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. By the way, yesterday I didn't see the super sticker from Ariel. You put a super sticker yesterday. Thank you so much, Ariel. Truly appreciate it. So the idea of to think in terms of why Iraq all of a sudden embarking on this is because they are seeing what's coming down the pipe and they don't want to be left behind, and rightly so. Why? Because also China is building infrastructure inside Iraq. Not a major mega project, but there are some, to my knowledge. I still keep an eye on that part of the world because that falls under my academic background, and I need to understand the developments now. Now, don't get me wrong here, guys. After the invasion, the Iraqi government was as corrupted as any. Yeah, don't fall for it also. Corruption is massive inside the government in Iraq. At that time, used to be the guy by the name Nouri Maliki, who, by the way, had properties in England. Ayad Alawi had properties in England. The corruption is massive. The system, I think, to me, and again, this might sound harsh, but I think corruption should be looked at in terms of when you break the public trust, you go to jail forever. Or death penalty for that matter. Why not? This way you'll think twice. And I'm not being heartless here, guys. Don't get me wrong. But if you get involved in corruption and break that public trust, why should you even be? The punishment will have to fit the crime. And to me, that's true either. And not the government that decides, the people that decides. You give the choice to the people. This is why for our system, we will never have a referendum, because the government understand if they ever open that door, the government will lose control. There's one thing I forgot to mention to you, and I want to go back to the history of Iraq because it's tied to our modern day. So you all hear about the term algorithm, right? Can anybody tell me the background of that term, algorithm? Let me type it here for you guys. Algorithm, right there. Can anybody tell me the background of that term? Where it came from? Algorithm. Let me see if anyone. Okay, you can see. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. So, the answer, Hushia, Latin, no. Good try. No. Anyone else? Algorithm is Arabic. You're absolutely correct. It's an Arabic term. It's by the name of Muhammad al-Khawarizmi. Yeah, that's the Arabic name. That's the one it was. So his name was Muhammad bin Musa al-Khawarizmi, and he lived between 780 and 850. Now, what was his name? Al-Khawarizmi. That's the Arabic name. What was he known for? He was a Persian. First of all, he was a Persian polymath, meaning he was a mathematician, and he was from the Khwarazman. That's why back then the names of Arabs always will have to take the name of the tribe they are from. So, and he's the one who produced vastly, believe it or not, vastly influential works in mathematics, astronomy, and geography. Till modern day, the modern day algorithm, it was based on his work. And it was around 820 CE, he was appointed as the astronomer and head of the library of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. That's why Baghdad was considered at some point in its history as the center of the Arab or the golden age of the Arab or Islamic golden age. So Iraq was also known by another guy by the name, he was a poet by the name of Abu Tayyib al-Mutanabbi. When I was in Baghdad, there is a boulevard inside Baghdad named after him. Al-Mutanabbi was one of the top poets in the Arab world, and he has also another last name, Al-Kindi. Al-Kindi was attached to the tribe he was from. So, and he was during the Abbasid Empire time. That's when I just wanted to share this with you while I was thinking about it. So let me summarize here, and I'll take a question or two from you guys. So one thing I want you to take from all this is that the decision by Iraq, yes, it's to crack down on the dollar, whatever, but that's beside the point. The decision is also, it's a reflection of what lies ahead as far as the global financial system with the dollar. It's going to go down one way or another. For now, we don't see that yet because it takes years. Remember, when the Bretton Woods system was set up in 1946, it took from that time to 1973, when the decision was made from 1973 forward, all the oil transactions will be conducted in the US dollar. It will take the same for the US dollar to cease to exist as far as global trade. And now we're seeing the fast pace towards de-dollarization. Iraq was thinking in terms, we better get on in this train before it's too late. And as I said, Malaysia also. Anwar, I didn't see Anwar Ibrahim making that decision this quick. And he did. And interesting, it was right after the elections in Maldives. Now, some might say, oh, there is no link there, Doc. No, it might be, knowing what those islands there is gonna, the role is gonna play within the big picture of the Indo-Pacific. So that is the reason why I wanted to say that. So, all right, let me see if there is any question here, and I am going to sign off after that. So I'm gonna post, by the way, a banner for the channel for your opinion on it. So, and I will welcome your feedback, guys, if you feel like it. So, all right, let me see. I'm gonna go all the way to the top, and by the way, if yeah, some of you have been suggesting certain topics, and I will do that. But I'm also keeping an eye on what you need to know, because there are certain things that I don't believe it will be covered in the Western media. So, question from Cheesecake: can the current Malaysia leader be trusted given his close ties to the three-letter organization in the US? Yeah, you all know what he's referring to, the three-letter, right? No, that's the CIA. Yeah, there is an old history there. That's why I was surprised that Anwar Ibrahim made that decision. But again, there are also the business community inside Malaysia that could exert influence. And they are saying, we don't want to risk any trade with China, because they are seeing already what's taking place in Australia. We don't hear much about how bad, economically speaking. I have somebody who I communicate with through another platform without disclosing this. And he is telling me about to leave the country altogether because where things are headed. You don't pack and leave unless it is getting very, very bad. So we are not hearing exactly the truth about how devastated the Australian economy is. And why? It's because China decided to stop, and rightly so. And rightly so. Sometimes you have to do the things that you have to do to make a point. Yes, will impact people, be it, because people can also influence their own governments. So this is how I see it. So another question from Hairless Ape. Question: will the Canadian dollar drop with the US dollar as it gets dumped? I don't know. It's hard for me to answer this one, because remember, guys, I am not a financial advisor. That's not my area. All I can see is that Canada now is going through a different, it's bad in Canada. The Canada you used to know or hear or read about a decade ago is gone. Is gone. The amount of what the Prime Minister dictator Trudeau is doing to that country. But again, people are allowing it. So same like us here, we're allowing it. So do you blame the government? You blame the people too. But what is planning in moving the country? As a matter of fact, I just find out that the Canadian government was paid by the World Economic Forum to allow the disclosure of some information regarding the pandemic. So, so, so. Oh, let me say here. So, just to answer quickly, I don't know, but also the dollar. Anytime things go wrong in the U.S., it impacts Canada's financial one way or another. So far, the dollar is still a little bit up in comparison to the Canadian dollar, but the lifestyle, the way how Canada used to be, when you have now the Prime Minister, Dictator Trudeau's gonna now choke the mainstream medias and the social media platforms. He wants to block all that. So Canadians will never know what the truth is. Let me, sorry. I want to say thank you to Sajad Al-Khafaji. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Yeah, Sajad Al-Khafaji. Thank you so much for your super sticker. You wrote, I am Iraqi. I live in the U.S. Firm Iraq in 100% support to Iran to the detriment of the Iraqi people. Iraqi government is subservient to Iran. They're open about it. I see your point, and I agree to a degree with this. I will not deny it. And the way I know it, when I was in Iraq, when I was back then, did you know that the intelligence services of Iraqi were infiltrated by Iranians? We were aware of it. I was aware of it because I was there, because the influence. But again, to me, and you brought up a good point there, detriment to the Iraqi people. And when you say Iraqi people, regardless of what religion, regardless of what ethnicity, those are Iraqi citizens. They deserve to enjoy and prosper through the wealth of their natural resources that belongs to them. Sometimes when and I'll tell you, you're from there. So when I used to go to Kademia and look to go walk through certain regions in Baghdad, and I'm seeing the slums and all that stuff, and to me it was like, as rich as Iraq is in natural resources, they're not developing. Why not? Why not? That's always to me the measurement by which I gauge whether a government is doing a good job or not. It's the reflection of its citizens. And we're not blaming just the Iraqi government. Corruption is all over. We have it right here at home. Go to New York City, certain areas in New York City, and see how you will think you are walking in some really underdeveloped country. And you are here in the United States. The infrastructure is crumbling, the trash, the people living in the streets, and we call ourselves the richest country on earth. So you got a point, Sajad. I agree with you. Yeah, the infiltration of the Iranian inside the system. But this is the mistake we created. I argued this before. I said you guys do not want to go in because that's going to now revive the Shiism that's been dormant for quite a while. And my advice was ignored. My report was ignored. There's nothing I could do about it. So there's something we call in the military chain of command. So you're absolutely correct. And Iraqis deserve better. Wonderful people, by the way. So like every other ethnicity. So I enjoyed meeting some in different parts of the world. So thank you so much for your super sticker, Sajad. Michael Julian, Doc, what is Iraq's level of willingness to comply with Iran and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in getting airspace for Iran's Air Force if Israel and allies dare to attack Iran lands? That's a great question. That's more of a strategic one than anything else. Yeah, it will be very interesting to see what Iraq is going to do. But remember, Iraq also doesn't have normalized relations with Israel nor do they care to have that. This is why you're seeing, I better get the charger here, guys. Pardon me. All right, let's get the charger here. There we go. Sorry for that, guys. So the idea, as I said, they're going to be thinking in terms of well, we can't let our airspace to be used, meaning Iraqis, our space to be used to attack our neighbor. Regardless of whatever, if that attack take place, which it will not, there is no way I see Israel making it's suicide. Despite what you hear, despite the rhetoric, there are two hurdles to Israel. First of all, Israel doesn't have fuel tankers for its flights from Tel Aviv or whatever they're going to take from all the way to Iran. They're going to have to refuel, which means who's going to provide them? Which means the United States. And if the United States does that, that means it's party to the conflict. That means any aircraft belong to either U.S. or Israel, it's subject to being shut down. So, and second thing is whether the countries in the within the countries will allow their airspace to be used. This is exactly what I heard about the ECOWAS in Africa. Certain countries said, forget about using our airspace. I don't see the same scenario. So, but attacking Iran, it will be suicide. Israel is not going to do it. They can't do it because they know Iran will shower Tel Aviv and any major cities with major missiles. And the Iron Dome is not working, despite what you hear. So this is what I see. So, and Iraq, of course, is going to think twice about allowing something to be allowing its airspace to be used to attack a neighbor. Because no matter how you look at it now, Iran is a neighbor of Iraq. Iraq is a neighbor of Iran. There's nothing. We created those conditions. It's too late. That's why I said back then, when I wrote the book about Iran, I put in my analysis there about the Middle East now has changed. The landscape has changed forever and not in favor of the United States because of what the change is going to be bringing new alliances because new one's going to reemerge. It's going to open up the door. Back then when I argued for Russia and China to now increase their footsteps in the Middle East, and that's exactly what is happening. So this is where I see the challenge. So, okay, I'll take one more question, guys. If I see a question here. Oh, it's not a comment, is a statement, or a comment rather. Until crazy, you wrote Australia poll defy including you meant to say including of Aborigines right into constitution. What it's sad, it's shame. Yeah, do we hear about Aborigines anymore or about Indian right here at home? This is why I always I'll defy anybody in this country here. We're all Americans, but we all came from somewhere. To those who say, well, you're not American, whatever. Nonsense. Because if we are to make our arguments, then we should leave the land to the Indian. We all pack our bags and leave. We got to be honest about when you debate or when you address an issue, whatever. You can't just brush it off or kick it aside and thinking, oh, it's irrelevant. No, it is not. You have to recognize at least the government is doing to a degree. When you go to the reservations in the western part of the United States, there are certain reservations, like, for example, they don't pay taxes. They have their own rules, whatever. They live in them alone to a degree, But still, how we came to be, it wasn't pretty. So, and we can't shy away. We can't shy away from addressing the truth, That's to me how I look at it. The whole reason for learning from history is not to make the mistakes again. You look at now with what's going on with this Arab-Israeli conflict. We all say, "Well, never again." Here it is. All right, guys. I hope you find this informative, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I'll be working on some topics, and I'm even thinking about probably doing just most of the live streams instead. But we'll see. So I'll put the question for you in a survey and get your feedback on that one. So, all right, guys. Hope you have a safe and peaceful weekend. Enjoy it, whatever part of the world you are in. And I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time. Bye-bye.